Walking along Timpytown Lake at Ironman, Arizona, I came across the following etched in stone story, the universal language of the heart. Here's my story: climbing Idaho. Did you know Idaho is 14th in size in the US, but it would be the largest if it were ironed flat? Somebody said dreams always come a size too big so we can grow into them. It took me a while to grow into my dream of climbing all 9 peaks above 12,000 feet in Idaho. Hinman is near Sun Valley, Diamond is in the Limhi Range, and the others are in the Lost River Range near Mackay. At 12,662 feet, Bora is the monarch of the Lost River Range and the highest mountain in Idaho. My friend Randy was telling me about climbing this mountain and all about a section called Chicken Out Ridge. Chicken Out Ridge has a 10 stair-step ladder made of rock that drops to a narrow saddle with a chute off the side. I am a courageous dreamer, and gosh, this sounded just like the perfect challenge. Ed, an analyst for the Idaho State Police, was featured on the front of an Idaho magazine for his numerous treks up Mount Bora, and he stated in that article he enjoyed taking people up the mountain who had never climbed to the top before. I qualify, I thought, so I contacted Ed and asked if he'd guide me and a group of my friends up. I wisely waited until he committed to tell him I was dreadfully afraid of heights. But once he committed, I let the cat out of the bag. I waited until we were leaving Paul to tell Trace and Aaron that heights were a problem for me. In reality, I had no clue what I was getting myself into. Honestly, I was thinking I was going on a mountain hike with a small, difficult ridge. Ed says some people reach Chicken Out Ridge, say no way, and return to their vehicles to wait for the others to complete the trek. Thinking it's just a small jaunt across, I take off with the rest of them. But I do have a very real fear of heights, so hanging out into and onto almost nothing terrified me. Cresting the top of the highest mountain in Idaho was incredible. I was shaking, exhausted, humbled, and a mess out there, but I did it. And hovering on my hard drive at the back of my brain was, how in the world do I think I am going to get back down? Ed and Trace are my lifeline home, and I'm not joking in the least when I say I'd have never made Chicken Out without them, coming or going. I lost some skin and left some blood out there, but I returned stronger than when I left. And then 1 month later, I saw an article in the Times News about a lady in Kimberly who had climbed all 9 peaks above 12,000. My husband Wayne said, "You ought to do that too." Trace and Aaron agreed we three would climb all 9 together, and so we have. And now our names are on the list. In reality, we pursue our dreams and passions not to cross something off our to-do list, but to tap into a joy. We stayed committed and motivated to finish the 9 peaks together, and being on the list was a bonus. The joys and the moments and memories collected that are tucked away to be replayed when we sit around the TV with friends and family exchanging stories of our lives. Hinman. The fall colors were ablaze on the trail, shining in autumn sunlight. We were 4 hours in when Trace tells Aaron she ought to consider asking her parents for life flight insurance as a Christmas gift. I mean, we all know where this is going, right? If you are hiking and you get hurt, getting a helicopter ride out of the wilderness is going to be pretty pricey, unless, of course, you have life flight, because in reality, there is no way we is going to carry you out. Just so you know, Wayne bought me that insurance. One section on Hinman involves scrambling over huge boulders wedged into place. It's intense and strenuous. I'm basically in mountain goat formation, hand and footing it across the rugged terrain. My quads were becoming exhausted and starting to shake. But on top, we are in a place that many will never be. It's exquisite up here. That I am here is nothing short of miraculous. Breitenbach. Peak baggers, that's what we're called, although we're very new at this. I almost didn't summit Mount Breitenbach. It had snow on the ridgelines. My brave and competent friends got out ahead of me. I was alone, and I shattered like crystal. First, I was frozen in place and I couldn't move. Then I was on my hands and knees crawling across this rocky, snowy ledge. You need to know I am not exaggerating in any of this. I left my trekking poles so both hands were free, and I crawled on, continuously shaking my head, wondering how in the world I thought I was going to make it off the mountain that night. When I finally reached this pinnacle where my friends were waiting, I was all but hyperventilating and so close to tears. I cling to the place I am sitting on, breathing deeply, trying to calm the panic. I just can't do this. The drop off on both sides is incredibly steep. A storm was blowing in. We knew we had a short window to summit. I told them to go on without me. They did. They maneuvered the ridges like they're headed to a picnic in the park. They went a ways, then came back. I'd had time to settle down, and I continued on. You see, I wanted to summit. I know if I don't do it today, I won't be back, and I won't be climbing the others. Fear will have won. Often we find, in order to go forward in life, we must do the thing we think we cannot. I am coaxed down the incline with generous doses of encouragement and support. I managed to sort of crawl my way over the ridges. I am sure I look embarrassing doing this because in my mind's eye and in reality, it wasn't pretty at all. But I'm doing it. I'm shaking but moving forward. Soon I'm on more solid ground. We pick up the pace on the final jaunt to the summit. I need to say this, put it out on the table because it's important. One never knows the future. In my moment of crisis, when I chose to continue, I knew if I got on the ridge and couldn't continue, I could turn back. I felt no pressure at all. But if I were to slip and fall and something were to happen to me, I would never want anyone to feel responsible for my choice to be on that or any mountain. I will climb with the utmost of care. But if it's the day God calls me home, then celebrate my passion for life and adventure. Here's the deal. Everything is risky. Each time we want to grow, it will evolve going into new territory and taking on new challenges. There will always be a level of fear involved in most growth. I lay in my tent the night before Donaldson Church, a bit more nervous for this climb than all the others. Tomorrow we will summit 2 mountains. Dan said he thought this duel was the most difficult of all the 9 peaks. It has miles of talus, slanted rocky shelves, sliding scree, and the narrowest and longest knife-edge ridge combined with heart-pounding exposure when compared to the others. 5:30 wake-up call. I'll spend most of the day following Tracer Dan. It's beautiful. Stephen Hunt says, if you're not living on the edge, you're taking up too much space. For the half-mile stretch from Donaldson to church, I'm not taking up very much space. I'm often on the edge, down on my hands and knees in my personal escort service. They're standing have to look ridiculous. I am trembling on that knife ridge, and a couple of times I can't seem to move. Dan reminds me just move one hand, so I do a few inches, and Trace lifts my back foot, which got it moving forward. Sometimes you have to muster the courage to move forward from a very difficult starting point. I so desperately want to be brave, show no fear, climb quickly, not hold others back, but I'm not able to yet, so I think I will try again another day. On the way home, I just want to curl up and rest or sleep, but I can't. 'Tis weariness, I think. It's very tiring to act brave when one is terrified. But if I am weary, Dan and Trace must be exhausted. They carried the lion's share of the load. Leatherman. The initial hike from the trailhead to the base of the mountain is beautiful on a well-worn trail that we will stay on for a couple of miles. There's an incredible meadow and clear mountain streams. It is so beautiful up here. I love walking through the mountains. They have missed me, I can tell. Sort of like we 3 girls missed Trace's left-hand turn. I mean, a clearly marked trail continued out in front of us. We stayed on the clearly marked trail, and I kept thinking Trace would be ahead of us, and when he whistled, there, way up high to our left on the scree across the mountain, stood our guide. By the time I locate him, I realize there's a lot of distance between us. Aaron and Jesse, who are behind me, head back and across the mountain, climbing up towards Trace. Smart move. And I, like the ant with his rubber tree plant, I have high hopes. I hope to use that snowfield in front of me to gain as much altitude as I can and meet up with them. Can we say shortcut? Didn't take long to realize it's not good. I've wandered off alone. I'm climbing an icy, snowy ridge, literally digging my fingers into the snow for security and jamming my toes in the snow to walk up. I burn through the energies in my quad quickly, and then they are shot. I am halfway to the top of Leatherman and feel I have already climbed all I can. Eventually, I meet the others and we summit. The mountains around us are beautiful. They love that I took their photo. Lost River. The climb to the top will either be through massive scree fields where slip and slide is the name of the game, or across snow-covered rock depending on when you climb. In the steepest spots, rumor has it you climb at an angle of about 45 to 50 degrees. It's unnerving to say the least. The evening before we drove over to look at our climb, Trace had set up his spotting scope and we peered at the mountain through the lens. Looked like someone had spread rich, creamy white frosting all over the top and down into the super gully. It was slathered in the whitest of snow. It made me really nervous. It looked like an avalanche waiting to happen. But we arrived at the trailhead the next morning full of excitement and expectation, climbed up through the trees to the scree path that led to the snow, trudged through that snow, sinking to our knees until Trace couldn't, and Aaron and I left him with a cramping leg muscle. We plunged step through that snow, making the false summit. Now, I am not a city-softened creature, but gosh, this was difficult. I never once looked down or back once we started up the main section. Think Stairmaster for 9.5 hours. Aaron reaches the false summit and says, "Oh, Alice, don't look yet." So I crawl up and sit on the rock ledge. The view in front of me is incredible and scary. I'm a long ways up, and at the edge of the rock, it drops off. This means the trip down will be eventful. I mean, how does one step off a ridge or rock shelf or even stand that close to the edge to take the first step? I'll never know. Here's the deal. If you can't give me a very high grade for common sense, at least can you admire my courage? I turn to look at the summit. We decide it is not wise to continue. So Aaron steps off and heads down. No way. I scoot over to the edge on my rear and panic. Oh my gosh, it is so steep. Why do you do this? I ask myself. You are in way over your head again. This is so out of your league. Some of you might be thinking about now, I am not the sharpest knife in the drawer. I scoot on my rear, dig in my heels. The snow piles up and stops me. I move to my right and repeat all the way down the snowfield. My scooting is sending little snowballs down the hill. Erin says she's concerned I'll start an avalanche. I can't see that happening. But then, about a third of the way down, the snow to the left of me does not stop and starts to slide in massive quantity. Wet, heavy, moving snow. It picks up speed and I watch as it rumbles down the mountain. Thankfully, we are all safe. Diamond. If human beings could float like balloons, you'd have had to have pulled me down from the clouds. This I know. If I'd have started my quest of conquering the 9 peaks with Mount Diamond, I'd have never continued on. I just don't believe way back then I could have made the summit of Diamond. It's an epic climb with tons of solid Class 3 climbing and a couple of sections that border on Class 4. Contemplating this climb, I kept asking myself what exactly I was afraid of. Was I afraid of falling? Not really. I haven't yet put myself in a place where I expect to fall. And as long as I maintain good point contact with the surface, I've been able to get to the top. Here's the deal. I have great peripheral vision. So when I stand or crawl on very skinny sections of rock ledges or when I'm turning on exposed edges, I lose my perspective and get pretty freaked out about it. But this day, I am strong. The Iron Cowboy who did 50 Ironman in 50 states in 50 days said, "I never ever doubted, and neither should you with anything you tried to conquer." Winds were gusting more than 30 miles an hour and blew through the saddle we camped in during the night. It's still gusty when we take off in the dark under smoky skies. Before we know it, we are at the bottom of the first major technical section. It basically looks like a vertical rock wall. Looking up, I honestly believe I can climb it and I'm not afraid. This is a huge paradigm shift for me. Rodolfo, who we met at base camp the night before, looks up as Aaron and Lana climb and said he's going to skirt around the bottom and find another way up. "Oh no, you can do this," I tell him. I am afraid of heights and I am going up that wall. So up he went, just like a pro. At the summit, Erin and I have planned a surprise for our last peak. She is wearing a Spider-Man shirt. She can pretty much climb straight up. I'm sporting a Wonder Woman shirt because seriously, it's a wonder I can even summit these peaks. We bought Trace Captain America. It has a star in the middle. Actually, it looks like a target. A lifelong time is not long enough to climb all the mountains I'd like to climb or to chase all the adventures and dreams worth capturing. Just for one brief moment in time, we danced across the mountains. Just for one brief moment, on the landscape of our lives, and moments and memories like this, scattered along life's pathway, are like diamonds sparkling in the sun. Life